Welcome back to Simply Green Radio here on News Radio 1180 WHAM. Simply Green Radio brought to you by Simply Green Energy and Mr. Rooter Plumbing, in studio with Maurice Aubry, Pete Morisi, Brenna Hartman, and also with John Billone. John, the president of Flower City Management and Development. We want to go right to the phone lines right now. We'll welcome in Royce. Royce, welcome to Simply Green Radio.
Hi, fellas. How you doing?
Hi.
Good. How are you?
I've been down to City Hall, to the Planning and Department, the Urban and Economic Development Department, and I've talked to somebody called Bergman Associates, trying to get them to focus on having a heat pump, air conditioning, and heating facility for buildings in downtown Rochester, using the Genesee River as a place to put a heating and cooling coil. Mm-hmm. And we used to have Midtown Plaza. It was the first indoor mall in the nation, and I thought it would be a way to bring attention to Rochester if we had the first municipal heating and air conditioning available at the cheapest rate for anybody living in the inner city, and getting a deaf ear. I took a course last year at RIT on people planning and policy, and I found that the cost of providing utilities is one of the major expenses for a municipal area, and this would be a relatively inexpensive way to provide services that are cheaper and better than any other city in the United States.
Well, I'll tell you, Royce, I mean, I like your way of thinking. Unfortunately, I don't know if I have all the answers as to why you're saying the city isn't receptive to this.
Well, the first thing they ask me is how much money is it going to cost, who's going to pay for the money and everything. They don't seem to have the capacity to understand that if you provide a better product, you'll have no vacancies and waiting lists, or if you have an inner city that's vacant and you provide unique services, you can bring somebody back downtown because it'll be cheaper for people to live and work and do business in the downtown. All they can do is raise taxes and create fees instead of providing something that will be a market leader and do what you're doing at the Medical Arts Building. It'd be even cheaper because you don't have to drill any wells if you can just make the coil in the Genesee River.
Yeah, let me comment, Royce, on a couple things. The river, well, maybe you're not aware, the river is being utilized by some buildings on the Genesee River. In particular, Cornhill Landing uses the river. Understand, though, that in the wintertime, the water temperature of the river, certainly like a winter we had this year, there's typically not enough heat in that water to pull out to utilize for a geothermal application. So it certainly has advantages on the air conditioning side because now you're using the river as your condenser and you're rejecting heat into the river. So that does make good sense. What it would cost, the infrastructure to put something like that together for multiple buildings like they do with Rochester District Heating. RDH is a municipal. Well, I'm not sure if it's municipal, but it's a steam system that does feed many downtown buildings on the heating side. I like your thinking. It makes great sense. The good thing is, again, there are some private dollars going into utilization of these systems on the Genesee River. How that could be implemented, on a bigger scale, I'm not really sure, but it makes good sense.
And I'd like to just cut in a little here, John, and as well. I do know that when you start talking about creating these sources for multiple properties, then you have to start forming utilities, and I know there's a lot of red tape in that as well. But we're kind of in the infancy of all of this. And Royce, I'll tell you, you're bringing up great points, and it's certainly, I think, with more people thinking in this manner, and having more people getting involved with this, I think you're going to see these things in the future.
Yeah, I think it's an Edsel. He's got an Edsel here.
Right.
He's got a great idea ahead of its time.
One more thing on the City Hall comment is that they have become much more receptive to these ideas.
Yes.
Back in 2002 when we started, and we told the city we were going to start drilling our parking lot, They said, yeah, that's great. There was not a lot of red tape at the time. We just needed a stormwater management permit so that if we did encounter stormwater, we had an idea of what we were going to do with it. But, certainly they have come much further than they were in the past. And I'd like to think that they're going to continue supporting these green initiatives.
I'll tell you, John, it kind of gives me an idea. Maybe we'll have on someday a guest from the city or the county that can help us clarify some of these questions.
I'm sure they
and
would.
I'm sure, if Brenna has any say in it, I'm sure she can drum somebody up.
Well, we were talking about having Jardine on. Jardine Johnson is, right?
Yes.
She's right from the city. I've worked with Jardine many times on different green. Her title is
I'm not sure. We've met a few times, and I've involved her on some of our upcoming projects, and very welcoming, and wants to get involved in whatever initiatives. Again, I know that former Mayor Duffy was certainly going in that direction with the city of Rochester as well. So I have not encountered any pushback from the city of Rochester with respect to the green and sustainable projects we've done.
It's interesting, though, because we all just pretty much wrapped up what we initially started this show for, is to bring awareness and to help answer some of these questions, because even at a government level and people in high positions in the city and the county, it's difficult to learn this stuff and to really wrap your brain around it and to understand how it can all work. So that's a good way to thank Royce for calling in, and he's listening, and this is what we're trying to do in the community with Simply Green Radio, is to bring some of these new technologies to light.
Yeah, he mentioned utility costs, right? And, how do we, taxes? Well, that's a tough one, taxes. But utilities, now, there is something that we can really, you can get your arms around that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not saying every property, every building is a candidate for what we did. All of the pieces lined up at the Medical Arts Building. We had the right stone in the ground. It was at the right depth. We had a parking lot to drill into. I mean, we really were fortunate.
And you had a pretty small footprint.
We did.
On the grand scheme of things, it was a pretty small footprint that you had to basically shoehorn this system into, and you guys pulled it off.
Yeah.
And that's really nice to hear. And it just got me thinking, and the owner of the company thinking, and that's why Simply Green Energy was formed. If you could take a building that was built in the 1929, 1930 era and be able to heat and cool it, it just really makes the imagination go wild.
There's a small investment to be made when you're looking at a project like this. You have to drill a hole, right? So you've got to drill a test hole, and there's an investment there, $10,000, $11,000, $12,000. We were on the verge, as a developer, right, of not spending that money. We were like, wow, that's a lot of money. We could put that money towards a conventional system, maybe pay for a portion of the boiler. Boy, I can't even begin to tell you how thankful we are that we said, you know what, drill the hole.
Drill. Yep.
And they drilled 400 feet down. The results were very, very positive. And like I said, the rest is really history. We talked a little bit about future projects, and we are doing a project down the street on East Avenue, doing some, it's called a cluster subdivision at 1475 East Avenue, where there's some homes, we're building some homes behind one of the old mansions on East Avenue. And I had one of the owners come up to me who had purchased the home that we had yet to build, and says, I want to do this geothermal. And I says, I'm on board. I says, you don't have to tell me. I says, we just, did this great system. This also would have been a vertical well system, because the footprint, the setbacks were so small, had to drill. Well, unfortunately, we drilled down 100 feet, and we started getting traces of methane. And so the driller called me up and says, John, I'm a little bit concerned about this. And so he advised us to cap the well, which unfortunately meant that we couldn't pull it off because we did not have enough space to put multiple wells in.
Right.
The 100 feet was fine. We needed to get 200, 250, 300 to make this particular system work, and we didn't have the luxury of space to get 5,
to
6
cap the
well.
other one and
Yeah,
move
so
on.
we had to cap the well,
And
but
it's unfortunate the methane just wasn't enough volume there, and you could put a gas well.
that
in,
would have
but-
been nice too.
I got a question. John.
Actually, before you ask that, though,
Yeah.
I do want to get in our last commercial break, but we'll come back here in just a minute. Simply Green Radio brought to you by Simply Green Energy and Mr. Reuter Plumbing, in studio with Maurice Aubry, Pete Morisi, Brenna Hartman, and also John Billone, president of Flower City Management and Development. We'll be back with more of Simply Green Radio here on Ask the Experts on News Radio 1180 WHAM.